I'm Tim Gordon with your weekly recap. We're going to catch you up on some of the biggest stories of the week. Let's start with an update on the Grasshopper Fire burning near Mount Hood. The latest report from Friday shows more than 48,000 acres have burned, and it's at 23% containment. Fire crews are seeing an increase in fire activity, addressing several spot fires, with the fire even jumping a Forest Service road. Heavy smoke has also prompted ODOT to close parts of Highway 35 in the area. Well, check this out, what appears to be a spinning column of fire rising out of a wildfire. This video from the Coleman Creek Fire in eastern Oregon has been making the rounds online, with many calling it a fire tornado, although it's actually called a fire whirl.
The phenomenon acts very similar to how a dust devil forms. You'll get a localized superheated area of ground, and with that, it starts rising through the air.
That rising air can then start to spin, pulling flames, smoke, and burning debris into a towering column. Experts say a true fire tornado is much rarer and requires a wildfire to create its own thunderstorm. They say this is yet another example, though, of how wildfires can create extreme and unpredictable conditions. Well, before we get to weather, we do want to let you know we've activated the Northwest Response Fund, with donations going directly to the Red Cross and to people in eastern Washington and the Spokane area and across Oregon impacted by wildfires. Donate by scanning this QR code with your smartphone, I should say. You can also visit any U.S. bank branch to make a donation in person. Meanwhile, one Portland researcher is sounding the alarm on the risk of an urban wildfire, saying he sees similarities between Portland and a deadly blaze in Altadena, California. He argues better technology could stop fires before they spread, but as Harley Coldiron reports, Portland Fire and Rescue doesn't see it that way.
This is the new reality. This is the new normal. We are not yet fully prepared.
Robert McCullough owns an energy consulting firm that provides research and planning for wildfire risks in our city. He believes we could see an urban wildfire like the one in Altadena, California, that killed 19 people and destroyed 9,000 buildings.
Many people think it can't happen here, but the fact is it can happen here.
Right now, Portland mostly depends on 911 calls to detect wildfires, a strategy McCullough says is behind the times.
The people calling don't know where the fire is. And we had a lot of experience with that in LA.
He wants AI cameras that can spot fires within seconds. The city has just 2 cameras that you see on your screen, both in Forest Park and both operated by Portland General Electric.
Where cameras or other detection methods really shine is in that frontier, or that rural environment.
However, Alan Fitzpatrick, a wildfire planning manager for Portland, disagrees.
Here in urban center of Portland, we get really good information from people very quickly. Our crews are out the door.
So not only are you getting amateurs telling you where to go, but also there really isn't an easy way to describe it.
He would like to see the network expand to other wildfire-prone areas like Oaks Bottom. McCullough says Portland and Altadena have a lot of similarities, like steep, heavily forested landscape that is not only hard to get to, there's also a lot of homes.
They pre-plan for those.
Portland Fire says they're ready.
They know where those steep and inaccessible places are. They call for the right number of resources early.
Well, hello, I'm meteorologist Chris McGinnis with your weather recap heading into this weekend. A decent looking weekend after what has been a hot week in some cases, especially for those of us in the Willamette Valley. And of course, at times a smoke-filled week. The weekend looks good. Mostly sunny and warm on Saturday, 86. We'll probably get a little bit of a marine push overnight, Saturday night into Sunday morning. So I think Sunday there's a reasonable chance that we wake up to some clouds, but it becomes mostly sunny with daytime highs in the low 80s, which, believe it or not, is right around or even a degree or two below average for the second week of August. So we go from really hot earlier this week to not so hot in the extended forecast. And that's really the trend here as we go into the weekend. Not quite as warm for Saturday and Sunday. And then the extended forecast, warm and dry. And of course, there's nothing unusual about that. We are climatologically in the absolute driest time of the year. The last 2 weeks of July and the first couple of weeks of August are typically weeks where we just don't typically get rain here in Portland. So that's not surprising, but it is nice to point out, especially because the heat's been a little high at times, that we don't have any excessive heat in our 7 to 10 day forecast. Okay, that said, I want to take you back a little bit. Now, this is imagery from Friday morning, but it's been repeated daily and nightly. What you're looking at is the natural fire color satellite imagery, courtesy of the College of DuPage, their meteorology department. And if you look closely there, I've encircled the Grasshopper Fire and the Rogue Creek complex, which of course is burning in Crook County. Those red swollen areas indicate where that dense timber is burning. And again, this is from Friday morning, but it's looked very similar the last couple of nights. So until they get a better handle on that, those dense timber stands are going to continue to be big smoke producers. And with the prevailing wind generally from west to east, that's where the smoke is headed. We're not adding new smoke into the I-5 corridor, but downstream of even the high lava fire, which has recently broken out in Skamania County, that is producing a little smoke through Skamania and into Klickitat County. And of course, there's the smoke plume from the Grasshopper Fire, and there's the Rogue Creek Fire, and that is all pushing into north central Oregon, away from the Willamette Valley, but folks that are downwind of this will continue to deal with those conditions. All right, we mentioned no extreme heat in the forecast, so high pressure, which has kept the region pretty warm the last couple of days, is backing off a little bit through the Four Corners. And we get a little trough here that builds in over the next couple of days, so that'll allow the marine layer to kind of thicken up a bit and keep us comfortably cool in the morning with afternoon sunshine and temperatures in the 80s. This high bears watching. This is for later next week. This is going out towards Wednesday and Thursday. That begins to pulse up a little bit across the North Pacific. There are some signs that may drift eastward as we get towards the tail end of next week, but that's beyond the range of our 7-day forecast. So with that in mind, the 7-day forecast actually looks pretty good. As we mentioned, a good-looking weekend. Clouds to sunshine Sunday, highs in the low 80s. And once again, the normal high this time of year is about 84 or 85. So from that perspective, weather is looking very comfortable for the week ahead. Enjoy.
All right, thanks, Chris. Well, asbestos has been found at the abandoned Centennial Mills building in the Pearl District that went up in flames. And we're learning that the material has also turned up in at least one nearby residential building. The Department of Environmental Quality tells us over the years, efforts have been made to reduce the amount of asbestos inside the building, but not all of it was removed. A letter sent to two residents of a nearby apartment building says debris with asbestos was found in some buildings near the fire site, but the city of Portland is saying preliminary testing from the DEQ shows a low risk from debris. Well, the department did share some advice for those who want to clean debris on their property, saying you should wear a mask and waterproof gloves. You can also wet the material first to keep dust down. Then, after you've cleaned, wash your body and clothes. Also, if you walk near the fire site, take your shoes off before going inside your home. The city closed the Fields Park nearby. We've also learned the city is working with the property owner to plan the demolition of the building, assuming it doesn't collapse first. Well, a man who fatally shot another passenger on a TriMet bus in 2021 has been sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Wayne Thompson was found guilty of second-degree murder. Video obtained by KGW shows the shooting. A warning, you may find some of this disturbing in terms of images. Police say the victim was harassing a female passenger before Thompson boarded the bus. Less than a minute later, the bus driver told the victim to get off. Thompson also yelled at him, then stood up, pulled a handgun from his pocket, and shot him 5 times. Thompson was arrested 3 weeks later and confessed, claiming he acted in self-defense.
All I knew is that this guy was having a spaz attack on a bunch of ladies on the bus. So I asked him to leave the bus, and then he decided to have a spaz attack and come and try and attack me, and I finished him.
Thompson attorney says they plan to appeal. Well, a Gaston man has been arrested for murder in a case that's 30 years in the making. And it's all from a combination of new DNA technology, testing evidence collected decades ago, and the investigative work from back then as well. 66-year-old Randall Gall was arrested by Washington County Sheriff's deputies on Tuesday for the 1994 murder of Vida Hardebeck. The 85-year-old was his neighbor, and it wasn't until last year when the case got a second look.
And they did all the things that you might expect. You know, they interviewed witnesses, they gathered evidence, they took photographs, etc. The ability to go back now and to see, you know, is there DNA that we can pull off of some of these items? That's the type of extra sensitive testing that we are asking these private labs to help us do.
The Washington County District Attorney says there are at least 30 cases going back to the 1970s that they believe are now solvable, and the cold case unit will continue to look into them. A Washington County judge has sentenced a man to almost 6 years in prison for shooting his 16-year-old girlfriend. 20-year-old Sky Corbett, who was 18 at the time, called 911 saying he'd accidentally shot his girlfriend, Naomi Briggs. Briggs was shot in the abdomen, taken to the hospital with serious injuries. She survived, and detectives say it was her statements and other evidence that contradicted Corbett's account and led a jury to convict him of first-degree assault and unlawful possession of a firearm. And to the future of Moda Center now, with the lengthy debates this week at both the city and county levels over hundreds of millions in taxpayer dollars to upgrade Oregon's aging arena and secure the Blazers for years to come. Let's start at City Hall, and while councilors discussed 18 amendments to a term sheet deal, none of them passed. John Adams has our update.
Portland City Council spent over 2 hours debating changes to a term sheet sent to the Trailblazers organization in mid-July. The term sheet meant to be a starting place in negotiations over funding for renovations to the aging Moda Center. The meeting contentious as amendment after amendment was voted down.
So we're going to be bringing amendments again on August 12th, or are we expected to rubber stamp this?
No, Councilor, there was engagement on this. We had a series of 16 or 14 votes just now, and they failed.
Proposed changes that failed included raising the fee the city gets from ticket sales at Moda to making concessions inside street pricing, similar to what is seen at PDX. After the votes, a number of councilors left the chamber feeling frustrated.
I'm feeling really defeated, and I think that Portlanders expected more from us today.
Councilor Mitch Green says he will continue to push for transparency before the council's vote on the term sheet next week.
And not negotiate from a position of fear and frankly adopt a term sheet that would set us on the course for the worst possible deal in the history of sports deals.
I mean, I think that they are prioritizing entirely the NBA's position, Tom Dundon's position.
Councilor Angelita Murillo says she is not in support of the current term sheet and is disappointed changes weren't made on Thursday.
I also see a council that is choosing to relinquish our own power by not making any changes in this public venue when we have the opportunity to.
Other councilors like Loretta Smith believe the current term sheet is a good starting place for negotiations with the Blazers organization.
I think it is something that can keep us here in the city of Portland, keep the Blazers here and keep them here with a fair deal.
City Council is set to vote on a finalized term sheet during next Wednesday's council meeting.
I got to object to what was just said.
I don't appreciate being impugned by anybody on this body.
I'm sorry. Please do not interrupt me when I'm speaking.
Because you're continuing to argue with Commissioner Moyer.
Meanwhile, that was part of the contentious back and forth on the county level as commissioners discussed their contribution to the project. In the end, they approved about $100 million and some extra terms. The commissioners want the Trailblazers to commit to staying in Portland for at least 20 years or risk having to pay the money back. They also want a plan in place to recoup some of their investment that would, in theory, come from an annual fee the city would collect from the Blazers. Hours of public testimony exposed a lot of opinions.
We want the team to stay. We want the arena improved.
To me, if you truly want to leave a mark, do it by protecting county jobs.
The outstanding question, where the funds will come from. Commissioners are leaning in on the county's finance office to present proposals at a future meeting on how to pay for that investment. And as we continue to track every twist and turn, we want to hear from you. You can text questions to 503-226-5088, and we'll do our very best to find clarity and hopefully answers. To results from Washington's top two primary as we set the stage for the midterms in November. That's because the race for Washington's 3rd congressional district could help determine which party controls the U.S. House. Corey Johnson breaks down the results.
After months of campaigning, Southwest Washington voters have really narrowed the field. Democratic incumbent Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Republican State Senator John Braun will now face off in November for the 3rd congressional district seat. Under Washington's top two primary system, the two highest vote getters advance to the general election regardless of party. The district, which stretches across Clark, Cowlitz, Lewis, Pacific, Wahkiakum, and Skamania counties, plus a small part of Thurston County, has been one of the most closely watched races since 2022. Gluesenkamp-Perez tells KGW she's focused on issues that aren't partisan but practical. She says she hopes to get a win in November and represent ordinary, hardworking Washington residents. While Braun, a Navy veteran and longtime state senator, tells KGW that while he values President Trump's endorsement, Washington's 3rd is an independent district, and he's running based on the needs of voters here.
I come into this race with humility and curiosity about how we can build an even bigger team, because that's the task ahead. How do we serve everyone in this district with so many diverse interests and values?
We're coming from virtually zero name ID, and yet, 60% of the voters did not vote for the incumbent. I feel like we're in a very strong position. We got to go keep doing the work, getting to know voters.
And the rematch now moves into the general election campaign, with both candidates spending the next 3 months making their case to voters in one of the country's most competitive congressional districts. Back to you.
And to central Washington in District 4, which spans from the Columbia River to the Canadian border, the AP is calling this one for Republican and Yakima County Commissioner Amanda McKinney, who is endorsed by President Trump. She'll face the sole Democrat on the ballot, John Dureski, an Air Force veteran. Congressman Dan Newhouse, who currently holds that seat, is retiring. Newhouse is one of the last remaining House Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump during his first term. Now back to Clark County and Fire District 10, where it looks like voters are supporting a bond measure to build a new fire station in Amboy. With yes votes well in the lead, this will raise taxes. For example, it will be about a $300 increase for those living in a home worth $650,000. And it looks like voters in East Clark County are on track to say yes to continue paying a tax levy for emergency medical services. Proposition 6 keeps taxes at the current level and would last for 6 years. Well, a petition to hire more Portland police officers with money from the Portland Clean Energy Fund won't be on the November ballot. The city said that the petition needed more than 40,000 signatures and came up short by around 6,000. There were two main reasons it failed, according to elections officials. Signers were either not registered voters or didn't live in Portland, and some signed more than once. The president of the police union criticized the signature verification process and said they plan to file legal action. Well, after more than 6.5 decades, Portland's Lloyd Center Mall will shut down this weekend. Over the years, it welcomed everyone from notable figures to everyday folks. Our Devin Haskins caught up with some of its final visitors as they walked the mall one last time.
I talked with several people walking the mall today who were here saying their final goodbyes, remembering the mall that they had spent so much time in that meant a lot to them as they grew up.
For 66 years, Lloyd Center Mall has been a place to create memories. From skating to shopping, it served as a hub, bringing people together.
The people would come together, the eateries, the camaraderie. It was just a tremendous place, and it will be sorely missed.
Just days before its closing, the mall sits mostly empty. Gates of once occupied stores are down and locked. Inside, an empty shell of an unknown business. Busy spots, an ice rink, a pretzel shop, and a store that's been there since 1961, Joe Brown's Caramel Corn.
Oh my God, the Lloyd Center was a magnet. It drew people from all walks of life, race, creeds, color, national origin, it didn't matter.
Opening in 1960, it was the premier shopping center in Portland. Over the years, political figures like Richard Nixon and Robert Kennedy spoke here.
I'm very pleased to be here in Portland.
When the doors first opened, eager shoppers streamed through the doors. Now, those same doors ushering businesses out before they lock for good.
It's really sad. I was here walking around with my group of friends and watching the ice skaters, and you get a little choked up because it has been a part of our lives for 66 years.
Lori Dahl and her friends walked the corridors, remembering each shop, some big names like Meyer and Frank, and the small businesses that have come and gone.
It's kind of a poignant moment for Portland because this has been such an iconic place to go and shop and meet friends.
The property will eventually be torn down and redeveloped into a multi-use site with housing and retail space. It's a sad reminder that all things must come to an end, with a piece of Portland history closing forever.
Lloyd Center's last day is Saturday, August 8th. At the Lloyd Center Mall, I'm Devin Haskins, KGW News.
And that is a wrap on your weekly recap. I'm Tim Gordon. Remember, you can catch the latest headlines anytime on KGW.com, our KGW app, or our YouTube channel. Take care.